Hello, I'm retired Battalion Chief Larry Cockman from the Greensboro, North Carolina Fire Department History Book Committee. We're here today at the Greensboro Historical Museum. I'm standing in front of the General Green, the first steam pumper, or as they called it back then, the steamer. Today, December 9th, 2019, we are starting a new tradition of recording and preserving the heritage and culture of our retirees. Our retirees have contributed so much to the success of our great fire department. Their stories retire with them and are sometimes gone forever when they pass away. They will share their emergency calls that will always be a part of their memories forever. So sit back and listen as they carry us through their journey in the Greensboro Fire Department.
Carl Martineller, and age is 69. I retired with 30 years and 10 months, just 2 months shy of 31, and I retired as a battalion chief. I'm related to my brother Jimmy Eller, who was retired as a captain on the fire department, who actually got on a few months before I did. And my son Charles Eller is actually on the fire department right now. I'd say no. I was actually more of an influence to Jimmy. This is kind of a story that is different from a lot of people. A lot of people just come on the fire department because they, hey, I hear they're hiring down at the fire department. Well, I started out in the volunteers. Started out in Summerfield, then when I moved to Stokesdale, I was real close to the fire station. So I actually responded and drove the truck and everything like that. And actually my brother, Larry, got me into the volunteer fire department. So I got to give him more credit for that. And then from there, when I was in Stokesdale, I was actually working at Pilot Life Insurance Company out on High Point Road. And that became a inside job that I really I didn't like it. I wanted to do something else. And I'd already got involved with the fire department, so man, I wanted to get on the fire department more than anything. That's all I wanted. So I went to Greensboro, and at that time, they were hiring unemployed, underemployed, and Vietnam veterans. I didn't meet any of them. My pay at Pilot Life Insurance Company was a little bit more than what starting pay was at Greensboro Fire Department. So Jimmy at that time was a Vietnam veteran. He was underemployed, and so I went and told him about he needed to go apply. Well, he went and applied and got on, and I was like, well, darn, I've screwed up. I probably won't ever be able to get on now. So I actually was trying in High Point. High Point at the time, you had to live in the city limits, and I didn't want to move into High Point. And I tried at the airport fire department. There was a small staff there, so that was kind of a far-fetched thing to get on. So anyway, after Jimmy quit his job, we were working out there in Stokesdale at an egg processing plant. So when Jimmy got on the fire department, I quit at Pilot Life Insurance Company, and then took his job. So then all of a sudden I was underemployed. So that made me eligible to get on. So that's when I got on. That's the story with that. Well, the process, when I got on the fire department, you actually went to the training center. It was Chief Osborne and Chief Kent. And they gave you a little test. It was like English and, making sentences and doing some math, and I can't remember the whole thing. It might have been 20, 30 questions. And then they took you out to the training center and made you go out I think it was the second floor. You just had to go out, hold your weight, go back in. Then they took you up. You had to do some pull-ups and then he put you through some other physical things. And then from there, actually at that time, since they were hiring through the Employment Security Commission, we had to actually go take a test at the Employment Security Commission. And then if you passed that test, and then that's, everything went through. I think Jimmy started in January, and I started like in April, right after that class graduated. It was me and Larry Cole. We were the first two that was hired in the class that we were in, and we were we were at the training center for about 6 weeks, and then they sent me and Larry. I think Larry went to Engine 2, Station 1, or Central Station at that time, and I went to Truck 1 on different shifts to Central Station. And then we stayed there from like the end of April, well actually it was May through June or January, and then we started with the training class. I never will forget, I was downtown in a parade years ago, and I noticed them firemen. I said, they got the ugliest hats I think I have ever seen. And I always thought I wanted to be a state highway patrolman, because I just thought their uniform was sharper. But then I found out, well, if you're a state patrolman, you got to move to maybe another part of the state or whatever. But I got over how the hats looked. Once I got into the volunteers, and it gets in your blood. You like fighting fire, the excitement of driving a truck and getting to the scene, and all that just made me more enthusiastic. And you get with people that that you get to like, and it's just a good organization. But I wanted it. I mean, this was something I wanted at that time, probably as much as when I was 15 and wanted to get my driver's license at 16. And when I got on the fire department, it was like, I can't believe they're paying me to do this, because it was that good. It was that good. Starting salary was. I got that here somewhere, $553 a month was starting salary.
Okay.
Well, the best I can remember, there were 22 in the class. I may be off a little bit, and I do pretty much remember all the people that were in the class. There was a few that was, terminated, 1, 2, maybe 2 or 3 before we graduated. And never forget, one guy come in, it was the day before we graduated, and he was late, and he'd already been late once or twice, and they let him go. They didn't play. Got Sam Angel, Larry Coble, Robert Graves, Kerry Hensley, Charlie Jones, Warren Ritter, Rick Travers, Rick Chuler, Danny Shoemate, Harley Reese, Jerry Price, Howard Wood, Danny Underwood, Steve Fowler, Larry Bailey, and Doug Christian. Our class got together, and I think we all chipped in $30, $40 or whatever, but there's supposedly a plaque there, but I think it's 22. I think the biggest thing, Chief Kent used to like to play around with some of the guys, and I know it was one guy, he was struggling, and I actually, his last name was Stanley. They actually let him go. I can't remember his first name right now, but you know how when he was going through the smoke lab, he just threw boxes all over him, where he couldn't find his way around and everything. Of course, it wasn't funny to him, but it was funny to a lot of us. And I know we actually would have guys, and see, this is another thing, since I'd already been on the fire department, if they needed somebody to pump the truck, I'd go get the truck, pump the truck. Actually, Chief Kent let me, after I went through the smoke lab, he pulled me off to take the other people through. And I ain't gonna say this, I ain't gonna say who it was, but somebody got in the smoke lab and they couldn't get out. We went to lunch, they brought them back, put them back in the smoke lab, and then they finally got out later that day. And I actually, and I probably shouldn't say this, I actually told him which way to go eventually. I said, turn right or turn left to get out of here, and he finally got out. So.
He did right.
He was still one of mine. It's like, I don't know if y'all watch Andy much, but Opie always talked about the kids. He said, well, I'm one of them, so I was one of the trainees. So absolutely, I mean, when I got on the fire department, like I said, it was one of the proudest moments I had of actually being on, actually getting on and being able to do that. So yes, my first station was Central Station, and my apparatus was Truck 1 on B shift, and my first captain was Captain Wayne Brown. J.W. Wolf was the driver, and Larry Bill was on the company. And Captain Brown. It was just 4 of us at that time. Well, a lot of people called me Carl Martin. They found out my middle name was Martin, and at that time, Kim, my ex-wife, she'd always call up there and say, can I speak to Carl Martin? Can I speak to Carl Martin? And then Smiley. they did label Smiley on me for a while. So, yeah, and one of them you was involved with. And this was when we were at Station 7, and I can't remember what all happened. I mean, there's several, but I do know the night that you had one firecracker, and you tried to light it. I think the fuse finally came out of it. You had to stick the fuse back in it, and finally did light it and threw it in the bedroom. And I think he was trying to get back at T. Newell that night. And then there was another time that you went in and messed up every bed at Station 7. You tore them all up, because I think something had happened to you. Well, anyway, John Michaels was out there at the time. And, of course, I think he was trying to get T back again. But John comes back, and I think he tells you, he said, I'm going to the office. You ain't got no business. You was about to make captain. Yep. And John said, you don't need to be captain. I'm going up to see Chief Powell. So I remember you got in there and made all the beds back out. And there's many more. I remember Ty Miner up at Central Station, up in the bedroom. I know a lot of people remember it, some people won't. Well, he was shooting ball rockets out of the little back closet and putting them in the where there was used to be a doorknob, but it was just a hole there. So he'd stick that bottle rocket in there and just fire them across the bedroom. And needless to say, somebody chased him out and slid down the pole and went from there. So, and I'm sure there's many more. You know, that's. Yes, I actually, when I went from Central Station, well, after training, I was assigned to Station 11, and Captain Frank Jones was my captain. And at the time, Frank was either president or very involved in the local. So I ended up joining the local back then, and I actually wrote it down here. Where did I put that? I'm sorry. It was about May of 1973. And, you know, it went for a while. I stayed in it. It got inactive. And then I do remember when I made battalion chief, and in my interview, Chief Powell pretty much strongly, highly suggested that we not be in the Union, especially as a battalion chief. But then as time went on, and I can't remember if it was, I think it was when Chief Teeters was chief, that they kind of opened it up, and then I got back in the Union. And I was in the Union, I don't know, 3 or 4 years before I retired, and I'm actually still in it. I'm still I'm not an active member, but I'm still in the local 947, Greensboro Fire Department. They always, you know, we very seldom at that time went out to eat, because, you know, we weren't doing as many things as the companies are doing today when they're going to EMT and they're going out to do pre-planning and things that way. So, yeah, we always chipped in. I want to say back then we chipped in, it was either $3 a day, somewhere. It was less than $5, but we chipped in, and that was for both meals. I think it is. I mean, I really can see with the way they are designing the stations today, it's really nice for the individual and the convenience of it. But I think by not everybody sleeping in one big bedroom, and, you know, it just seems like people goes to the little cubby holes and stays there. Now that's not true with everybody. You know, you've got loners, and I think sometimes those loners could be pulled out more if they were more involved, but they're the ones that just kind of go. Now, I'm relating this to people that I talk to that's on the fire department right now. But you still have groups, I think, that are very much involved and do a lot of the stuff that they've always done. But I just think with the way they've got the stations now, it's more inducive for them to, you know, once they finish their chores, they'll go back in their bedroom and they may stay there all day, you know, so. I could do biscuits, was one of my main things. I was usually the biscuit man, but as far as being a good cook, I was adequate. I got by. So I would not put myself as being a good cook. No, I can't think of anything. And I'll say this, going back, Otis Sellers was, after I made captain, Otis was on my company. And he usually, the day it was my turn to cook, he would cook for me. So I have to thank Otis for that. So, and he was a good cook. Otis was really good. And you know yourself, some companies, they had guys that came in, I can't remember all the names now. Oh, Jimmy Williams, for example, Big Head Jimmy. You know, he'd come in and cook every day. He was a great cook, and they let him do it. You know, hey, here, Jimmy. And Jimmy invited us a lot of times to eat meals with him, you know, especially when he was over at 12. And at 9, you know, you can remember the days at 9, with 3 people in the bedroom, 2 captains and a battalion chief. And that was another funny story about Chief Lemons, that you said he'd always come to bed late at night, and I think y'all had the little metal stools we had to sit on, and y'all set that stool out somewhere where he'd come in there and tripped over it, and I won't use the adjectives that you told me he said that night before he went to bed. So that's a lot of good memories from the fire department. There's no doubt. There's some that's not always been the best, but overall they all have been really good. I think a lot of it's the same. It's still you know, they're there together 24 hours, and they share things, and you know, watch sporting events, news, whatever, talk about fishing. They get together. A lot of companies, I know my son Charles, he'll get together with the company, and they may go bowling, or they may go do something special, just, you know, just because they want to do something together. And they do it on their off-duty day. I think it depends on the dynamics of the individuals at the companies that work together. You know, some of them mesh real good, and that's the same way it was even back in our days. You know, you had, you know, it was like, you know, when we did the captains on the engine company always went forward, and every year, and then the captains on the truck and the battalion chiefs went backwards. And you know, the captains always say, you know, well, we want to keep this company. This is a good company. Well, if they didn't like their company, they was glad to make that change. So it was a good thing and a bad thing. But I think still there's a lot going on today that's always been there, but maybe not as much. I remember my first call, but it was as a volunteer. Okay. And that was in Summerfield, and we were doing a training class. And actually, I drove on the call, and it was like an old 1950 GMC front-mounted pump. Of course, when we got to where we was going, it wasn't really anything to it, but I remember how my leg was shaking on the clutch, you know. Of course, everything we drove back then was straight drive, so. But that was my first call. I remember other calls in Greensboro, but I can't really relate to what was my first one, I think. And I hate to say that, you know, I just don't remember it, but, well, it was back in those days, it was kind of one of those things. It was good to be a volunteer. I mean, the communities needed it. Back then, you didn't have to have all the certifications you do have now. I know a lot of the volunteer fire departments are struggling to get people in because, you know, it's just more involved now with the certifications and things. But I also know that when we went through training, they didn't want to hear this is the way we did it at the volunteer station. I never will forget, J.W. Wolf told me, he said, if you go out there and that truck's as red as it can be and they tell you it's black, you agree that it's black. I mean, that's the point, that, you know, whatever they tell you, you accept it and move on with it. So, and had training through the volunteer fire department. We'd go to the airport, do phone evolutions and operations. So yes, absolutely. It was something I wanted, and I knew pretty much what I was getting into. So I know when I first come on, we did no medical calls unless it was a pin-in or a drowning. And I know we had 2 rescue trucks. They had a rescue truck at Old Central Station, and they had a rescue truck at Station 5. And those trucks primarily, they didn't go out that often. And of course, they had people assigned to it. I remember Chief Teeters was one of the ones that was assigned to the one at Central Station. And I think it was just depending. They didn't go on like heart attacks or, you know, respond like the first responders are now. So that's the way it started out. And then as it evolved, the squads came in. You know, the engines were still not responding on medical calls, but the squads did. And then it went from the, from the squads to the first response with the engines and things of that nature. But I never got that involved because I didn't get on the squad. I made driver on Engine 7. And we'd go to wrecks, if it was a fuel leak or something like that. But I guess I just, I would go on medical calls as a battalion chief. It was being in or something of that nature. But yeah, it was a good thing. It was a good thing for the fire department, I think. Yeah, I think looking back, and I had to, it doesn't still stick with me today, but I do remember when I was at Station 7, and we had a call, if I'm not mistaken, it was on Caryland. It was an apartment fire, and I think I might have been driving. I can't remember for sure, but I remember there was an 18-month-old child that died in the fire. Jimmy Gwynn went in and found the child. It was, I think it was off the bed, next to the bed on the floor, and it died. I mean, it just, at that time I had kids same age at home, and it actually bothered me for several weeks thereafter. And there's other things I've seen, burn victims and things of that nature, but yeah, that was the worst, seeing an infant die in a fire. Well, I'll have to say, I think most of the big fire zone I was actually driving or pumping, and I know one comes to mind. It was A&P. I know it was a grocery store on Phillips Avenue, and you might have come over there too. I don't know if we were working together, but Engine 7 was first in, and we laid two lines in and pumped, and it was a hard one to get out. I know we had an insurance building that was at Summit and Wendover. Homeland, actually, I think it was on Homeland Avenue. And I'll never forget, Chief Price was the chief on that, and I don't think things were going too good. And we were always told about if you put the ladder up, the building's coming down. And but sometimes you had to do that. There was actually a big insurance building too that was right there on Summit. And I'll have to say this was probably my scaredest I've ever been. It was a pretty big building. I think the fire was on the second floor. I got up there and I couldn't get out. I couldn't remember how I got in there, where I was going, and kind of panic set in that, I'm in trouble. But it worked out and I got out. I do remember that one thing as a firefighter. The old Tomlin building that was on Washington Street, it was a pretty big fire. I remember being on that, and I don't think I pumped. I was actually a firefighter at that time. The Banner Avenue fire was actually, Mick Noonan came in, and I think he retired right after that. That was one of those moments that could have been a lot worse, because I think Captain Church, I think he was a captain then, but anyway, the Truck 7 had been up on the roof, and they hadn't been down but just a couple of minutes, and the roof collapsed. And he was on Engine 2, yeah. I can't remember, and I remember at that time too, Julius Evans was, I can't remember the tool we had, the battering ram. Yeah. And somehow when it went through, his hand went through with it and caught the wall, and it messed his hand up pretty bad on that, which I guess could have been a lot worse, and it was a hard fire to get out. So the Castaways, I think that was on Lindsay Street. Arnold, okay, Arnold Street. I remember I was actually driving on that one, and we'd been doing all these classes about, 2 in, 2 out, and actually that was 2 in and 2 out, and went back to the hydrant on that, so I was actually pumping 4 lines in. And it was, there again, some of the fires when you're driving, you don't really know what was involved with actually putting it out, but that was one of the big fires I was on. We'd always be going to the lint hole at Revolution. Most of the time it didn't turn out to be that much, but most of the time you had a bunch of lint on fire down there, and it was like a plankway. I think you had to walk down, and if you got off the plankway, you'd actually fall into a hole full of water. So that was something we was always dealing with. And I think one of my prouder moments as a battalion chief, we had a tanker fire at Gallimore Dairy, and it was at the intersection. I can't remember, it was on Gallimore, but there was another street that ran into it, and it was late at night. And we got there, and they were getting ready to put foam on it and try to put it out. And I said, no. I said, there's no exposures. It's out here in the middle of nowhere. I said, let's let it burn. And I think in the past there had been fires like that, and people tried to put it out. They used hundreds and hundreds of gallons of foam. The foam was not only, I mean, the gasoline was bad enough as a runoff. Then you got all the foam to run off. So. But anyway, and some guys told me later, you know, I think some people said, well, you know, maybe we should have tried to put it out. But then some people said, no, you did the right thing, and let it burn. And I think they've had some situations since then that now they take a look and kind of let it, if there's no exposures, just let it burn. So anyway, that's probably some of my, the ones I remember the most. So. Yes, as a driver, we was all competitive, and we never wanted to be beaten in anywhere that you're not supposed to be. And Cone Hospital, 1200 North Elm Street, was one of the ones that you and I used to race to. And I'd say, you want to say that you beat me in, but I don't think you did. You might have beat me in a time or two, but most of the time. And you were closer, but you had a harder route to go because all we had to do was shoot right down Wendover. Of course, you had to come down Yanceyville, then come back up Cornwallis, and then get on Elm Street and go back down that way. So you had kind of a hard run to get there. So, but yes, we were all very competitive. And I probably sometimes pushed that truck harder than I should have, and I was very fortunate I never had an accident.
Me too.
Yes, on 9/11, I remember where I was at, what I was doing. I was actually working my part-time job as a rigger with the local. I was actually over in Winston-Salem, and you know, it was like, well, the first plane had hit, and everybody thought, well, you know, it's just a mistake. And then when the second plane hit, they knew it was something more going on. And I would say that it was a bad day for America, for the fire service, but it made me proud to be part of an organization.
I know what you mean.
But anyway, it made me proud to be that part, to know that when we're called upon, that we go through the things that we go through. And we did receive a lot of recognition for it, the whole fire service. And I've actually have been up to New York. Tim Gibbs and I both went up there when they were looking at getting the rescue trucks. So we went up and actually rode, and I still got the video. We rode, and Tim could tell me better, but I think it was Rescue 3 and Rescue 2. One of them was in Brooklyn, and the other one was in Bronx. But it's a lot of the same stuff. They cooked, you know, they'd go out, and I think one of the their day of training would be, they're going to go out and do some
New York City, right?
New York City. They're going out to do some vehicle extrication. Well, their vehicle extrication is they ride down the street and there's an abandoned car. And that's what they did their vehicle extrication on, was an abandoned car that was just left there on the street. So you see a lot of different things, but when it comes down to the way it was at the firehouse, never will forget the guy, they was cooking spaghetti, and they had this big old sink, and of course, you know, they were draining the spaghetti. I think half of it dumped over in the sink, and of course they just pick it up and put it back in there. And it was good. They had some good cooks, you know, so yeah, it was a great experience to go up there. When we were at the first station, I want to say that was the one in Bronx. I want to say Rescue 3. There wasn't as much going on, but when we got over to Brooklyn, it was like one call after another. This was before 9/11, I'm pretty sure, yes. Yes, when I was first assigned to Station 1 on Truck 1, it would have been J.W. Wolf. And he was one that, during the classes that we had, we'd always have class after lunch, usually from 1 to 3. And he's the one that would tell me and take me back there and go over, all the pumping problems or pumping. Well, there were problems you actually had to solve, like with math and stuff, and the ladders and the angles and departures. I can't remember all the stuff that we went through, but JW he helped me a lot. And then when I got to Station 7, Junior Allen would have been one of the ones that helped a lot with helping me learn what I needed to learn. And then, from there, the list would just go on to people like Paul Brown, Boat Bill, Mick Noonan, Bull Price, Bill Osborne, Reese Kent, Jack Coble, and R.L. Powell. As you progress through, especially like in training, you looked up to Osborne and Kent. And then after that, and I think some of my favorite company officers was Paul Brown and Boat Bill. They were just good people. I think some of my challenges was more administrative. I tried to do what was fair for everybody, and I never will forget the holiday pay. And they were paying on holiday pay. They paid the line people the same day as the administration took the holiday. And I just said, that's not really right, because Easter, they would pay either Friday or Monday. At one time, they recognized Easter Monday over Good Friday. Then they started recognizing Good Friday. I said, what about the guys that's working on the line on Sunday? That's Easter. And 4th of July could have been the same way. It could have hit on a Sunday, but they paid a Friday. So I took that as a challenge, and I got kind of shot down originally. Because I went into Chief Coble and I was talking to him about, well, why can't you do this and why can't you do that? And he said, well, you need to go talk to Chief Powell. So I went into Chief Powell about my thing. Look, why is these guys on the line getting paid today? The office takes off because that's not the real holiday. So anyway, that eventually got passed to do it that way, where the guys actually work the holiday. And I don't know, I probably had several other stuff that was going on with this and that and the other, but I kind of feel like that was one of my challenges that I may have got shot down on, but then eventually it came back. So,
either one you want to talk about?
Well, two of the worst things I had to go through. First was divorce. That was hard, especially with 5 kids, and no blame on one or the other, but it was just a hard time. And then a few years later, I lost my daughter. But you was the man I called the next morning to tell you.
I know that, Carl. I'll never forget that, Carl.
But as far as the rest of I don't know. I can't think of anything worse than those 2 things in my life. So. There was a lot of proud moments. I guess the way I told a lot of people, 2 of my proudest moments, I compared it to buying a boat and selling a boat. And that was the day I got on the fire department and the day I got off the fire department. And the hardest decision about getting off the fire department was finally making the decision. And when I made that decision to get off, then I'd say it was a pretty proud moment, to have fulfilled a career, and now you've got through that decision-making process, because you said, well, if I stay on, I get longevity another year, and I get on my vacation time, and I finally said, hey, enough's enough. I'm ready to retire, and that's what I did. Sonny, he always comes up to me and tells me, you stole my dream, you stole my dream. And sure enough, I did. I come in and I read an email about something that they wanted us to do that I wasn't quite planning to do or didn't think we were going to have to do. And I went that morning, I called Iris, and I said, is it too late to go ahead and retire to get all the paperwork? And she said, if you come right now, come up today, we'll get it done. So that's what I did. I came back to work on a Sunday. I worked a half a day and didn't work anymore. And I miss the people, don't get me wrong now, I miss the people. But the parts of the job, the way the job was getting, and, you know, just old, you know, we wanted to be with the people and go out on calls and be there, but it just, I don't know, it got too administrative. Yeah, with the deaths of victims, it definitely, you know, some people deal with it better than others. I think sometimes as a Christian, maybe you look at death as not the end, and maybe you can accept it a little bit more. And I'm not saying that's a good thing, bad thing, but some people, I think it does bother, but they hold it in and they don't want to say anything about it because, you know, you're going to be a wuss or you know, move on, man, move on, you know, like, don't let that bother you. But I don't know, it's kind of one of those things that it can be hard, but I know you go through mourning, and, you know, some people mourn different than others, but it was hard. Raymond was hard, and I had got close to Raymond through the Poor Boys Fishing Club, and Raymond and I had been down on some trips. Matter of fact, I went down with Raymond when we were building the house, just me and him. You know, we had a lot of conversation about things. And I know Raymond always made a joke when he was playing basketball. He'd say, "Wait a minute, I got to take a heart attack break." And he was playing basketball when he died. And I remember you and I both were at Station 9, and they called me and said we needed to get over there right away. I don't think we knew then, other than that maybe he had just passed out, because I think he'd passed out before like that. And Raymond had actually talked to me, and I think he'd talked to several people about, you know, they wanted him to go down to Duke or somewhere and have that surgery done, and he never had it done. It was, and you know, Raymond was he was one of those guys. I didn't know Jesse Gray, but I always heard Jesse was, you know, everybody liked him, everybody liked Raymond, and I know Raymond was like everybody else. He had struggles in his life with family and things of that nature, but he was always come out, you know, being happy about it. Didn't show, you know, some people get off in a corner and just act like they don't want to have anything to do with anybody, but Raymond was never like that. So. But anyway, it was a mourning process you have to go through, and you just realize that after you get through it, just like when my daughter died, you know, I just thought at one point that you didn't really care about doing anything else. You thought that was kind of the end of your world, but then I looked around and I said, well, I got 4 other kids here. I got 4 boys, you know, I can't just give up or quit. You got to keep going. You know, and I think that's the way you have to get through things. You have to look at it to know that there's other people in your life that they you know, they need you, and you just have to kind of move on, let it go. Well, you don't let it go. You never let it go. You just have to move on. Yes, I can remember when the first females came on. I guess I can't remember the exact. I remember Deanne. Anita Strong. I'm not sure if Lynn Snow was in that class. It was different. I think there was more. What's the word I'm looking for? There was more concern from the wives of the firemen, I think, than it was the firemen, with just the idea that there's going to be a female there at the station 24 hours, and there's probably a few times that there were some situations that it might have been, you know, right. None that I ever got involved with or can remember, but it was a transition with the fire department with females coming on, and I think some of them, they were great firefighters. As a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, Deanne was the first chief. I think she retired as an assistant chief, maybe? Deputy chief, yeah. So it was not a bad thing. Okay, yeah, if I had to do this all over again, I would do it all over again, because it's been a great career, and wouldn't take anything for it. I'm sure there's some things I would probably go back and do it a little different, but as far as the whole part of it, no. I mean, I would do just what I did. I think the biggest thing, and you know, being a battalion chief, and you and I had talked about this, and because when we made battalion chief, it was more of being a line battalion chief, and you were more involved in firefighting and not so much the administration part. And you'd always say, you watch Carl, before this is over, we're going to be doing what the commanders are doing. We're going to be doing the budgets. We're going to be doing the productivity, and you know, we got into doing the pie chart with the companies and how they were doing pre-plans and hose testing and all that, which wasn't a bad thing, but I felt like it was just a transition that I could deal with. You know, I think I did okay with it, but that was one of the things that was like a change that we seen, and it's inevitable that some of this stuff had to be that way, and just like getting into the medical calls, you know, that was a big thing for the fire department. We were reluctant to do that, but in the long run, we realized that helped with our job, you know. So, but yeah, every day. I mean, if you look at it, every day you come in, it was always, you know, you wanted to get through that day and nobody get hurt. And especially under your command, I think that was one of the biggest things that it was always that you looked at. And other than Raymond, I'm pretty fortunate that I can't really say that anybody was hurt or killed while I was in charge.
Carl Martineller, he was always someone for me that I looked up to and tried to pattern myself in a lot of ways the way you handled yourself and handled men, and I respected that tremendously. And I loved you dearly and still do.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. I think they're definitely more busy as far as the call activity. Oh gosh, back when I first come on and we were at 7, you know, we were always competing with Engine 4 on the number of calls we had a year. And if I'm not mistaken, those calls were like 400 calls. You know, if they had 400 or 500, you know, they might have had a few more than us. And it was like, now, how many calls are they riding? 2,000 or 3,000 calls a year? Mm-hmm. So yeah, the call activity. Of course, now we used to clean the station. I'd say now, back in the days, the station stayed cleaner, the equipment probably stayed cleaner, because we spent a lot of time. You know, when you get back from a call, even at night, if it had been raining, that truck gets rinsed off. You don't pull it into the station. And you know, we had certain duties that, and they still do that, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of the stuff I think that we took on back then they don't have. So it's been kind of a trade-off, I feel like, with some of the activities we did with cleaning the station, cleaning the equipment, learning territory. I can remember, you know, we'd have street study. Of course now they still have street study, but they've got, if I'm not mistaken, they got GPS on their equipment now. So at least, I think the drivers still want to have an idea of where they're going without having to look. Because when that thing says turn now, it might not be not turn now. It might be, you know, 20 more feet. But I mean, you know, when I first come on, we had trucks that didn't even have cabs on them. And you rode on the back of the truck, especially Engine 1 and Engine 2. And they had a little buzzer back there, you know, you would buzz. And of course, that very thing, I feel like cost Jesse Gray to lose his life, you know, because of there was not that good of a communications. And when he jumped off the truck to catch the hydrant, I don't think, you know, Fred or Captain Brown, neither one knew he had jumped off. And I think the buzzer was to let the driver know, or the captain know, that, you know, either to stop or to get their attention. So, but yeah, there's things that was tougher, but then there's a lot of things I felt like the modern firefighter has got tougher for them to get through certifications, different tests they got to deal with, medical calls, going in on a call, that's things we didn't have to deal with. So yeah, there's a trade-off. So there's things that we did that maybe wouldn't be, more requires that we did more in one way, but they're doing a lot more in another way. So it's just like going by a station now. Sometimes you don't even know if they're going to be there or not. So I was in the military. I was in the United States Marine Corps Reserves, and I was in there. I went in August of '69 and got out in August of 1975. Yeah. Of course, I was actually got on the fire department after. And I probably would have stayed in, but it conflicted with working at the fire department. But yes, it was a great experience, and I wouldn't take anything for that either. I did my raises, and I started out at 553, and about the captain at Wayne Brown. Stayed in training for about till February 1973. Received a raise while in training. Went to 581. Then I was assigned to engine company number 11, March 1st, 1973. Captain was Frank Jones. Received a blanket raise in June 1973. Went to 610. And assigned to engine company 7. Received another raise at engine 11 about July 73 at 641. And this was all dealing with pay. And then April 1974 went to $764. And made driver on engine 7 effective October the 20th, 1975 on B shift, and now making $879. And I think that was my last, the last thing I stopped keeping up with the pay, and that would have been in 1975. So I'd say, in my personal opinion, a successful firefighter is somebody who's happy where they are in their life, whether they're still a firefighter, a driver, a captain, or a chief. It doesn't matter. If they're where they feel comfortable and that's where they want to be, I think it's fine for people to try to, get promoted and progress. But then again, when I came on the fire department, that was one of the very things that I looked around. I said, there's one captain to each truck on each shift, and then there's 3 guys below him. I said, everybody can't make captain. So I realized then my goal was, if I could make captain, that would be great, because it's a promotional process. The reality of it is, everybody's not going to be a captain. So yeah, that's some guys that they retire as a firefighter driver, and I got just as much respect for them as I would for the chief of the department. And that's the way I feel. Well, I'd say it played a big role. Big family, kids coming and going, come by the fire station. I never will forget, they'd always tease about, well, here comes the Eller family, they're coming out of the van, they're, one after another. I never forget, we got together over at Page High School. Station 1 was playing Station 7 in football, and I think it was Doug Reed. He called me the coal miner's daughter because of all the kids, But it was a big part. Faith was a big part. I think handling some of the things that you handled through the fire service, that your faith come into play with that. So, well, when my son became a firefighter, that was probably one of my proudest points of even being a fireman myself. I mean, when he got on, and Charles tried for 5 years to get on, and he didn't give up. He kept trying, and he finally got on. So I think that made it even more special. And he loves it. He loves the job. So health's been pretty good. I've had a few aches and pains and joints and things of that nature, but overall I'm very thankful and very fortunate to be where I am. So, like I said, I'm just proud to have been a GFD firefighter. I don't think I could have been any prouder to have done anything else in my life. And it was a great career, and met a lot of good people. people that's going to be lifetime friends, and even people that you may not see but once a year. You still, bring back memories and things that you did together. I can remember at our little get-together, Chief Flowers was there. Chief Flowers used to cut my hair over Station 7. They had a barber's chair. I think Chief Manus, actually back, he wasn't the chief then, but Chief Manus brought it in, and I think he was going to teach Ray Flowers. We called him Ray back then. Ray Kermit Flowers. And I don't think a lot of people realize that his middle name was Kermit, but anyway, things like that, and when I went up to Chief Flowers or Ray back at our little hot dog get together, I asked him, you remember cutting my hair over there? And he said, oh yeah. So, and I remember we paid, we bought them a drink. I think a drink was $0.25 out of the, we kept them in the refrigerator at the time. So we pretty much give them $0.25, bought them a drink, and that's what they charged us for cutting our hair. So, of course, Bob McLean used to do it too at Station 1. He was a barber up there. He used to cut my hair, Jack Coble's hair. Well, I think as far as family goes, you would just want them to think that you was a good dad, and you provided for them when you could and needed to, and help them out. So, I don't know. I just want to remember that as being a good guy. That's it.
We hope you enjoyed watching these documentaries. It was our goal to share and preserve the memories of our retired Greensboro firefighters. It is our desire that these documentaries will inspire future generations to continue the brotherhood, sisterhood, and camaraderie while always striving for excellence in their careers. While fire apparatus, equipment, and technology have improved, several things will always remain the same. The courage and bravery it takes to mitigate natural and man-made disasters will always be a part of the job. Although our retirees are no longer a physical part of the GFD world, a giant piece of each retiree's memories have been shared with you today. These memories will be in their hearts and minds forever. A special thank you goes out to Captain Harold Haney for his many long hours of recording and editing. Thank you, Harold. A job well done.